1991, New York City. This woman owned 9 Monet and Renoir paintings in one room. She lived with one of the most powerful billionaires in American history. She ran a fashion empire with her own name above the door. Everyone in the city believed she had it all. Then, a midnight phone call reported that his 19-year-old son had just died in a car accident on a Colorado gravel road. Within months of that scream, the fashion empire collapsed. The credit cards were cut. The house burned to the ground. The billionaire husband left for someone else. And the woman who had stood at the summit of New York society watched her balance of power return to exactly zero. This is not just a story about a billionaire marriage gone wrong. This is the most brutal lesson in financial architecture, power, and a trap that far more people fall into than will ever admit. Never build your empire on someone else's land. Welcome to the rise, the collapse, and the strange rebirth of Carolyn Roehm. Carolyn Jane Smith left Kirksville, Missouri in the summer of 1973 with $600 and 5 suitcases of carefully chosen clothes. Her father was the high school principal. Her mother taught school. The town had 9,000 people. She had no family connections, no inherited name, no introductions. She had one thing, a certainty. So absolute it was almost frightening that she belonged somewhere else entirely. Within 11 months, she had talked her way into Oscar de la Renta's studio, the most prestigious address in American fashion. De la Renta recalled later that the first thing he noticed was not her portfolio, it was her. He hired her not for her sketches, but for her look. She knew exactly what that meant, and she used it. Starting salary, $126 a week. She held pins, she ran errands, she stayed in the workrooms after closing, studying the construction of couture garments, the way a surgeon studies anatomy, obsessively, privately, alone. Nearly a decade, learning every seam, every fabric weight, every internal structure that makes a $10,000 gown hold its shape when a woman crosses a room. She built herself, piece by piece, from nothing. And she never deceived herself about what she was building or who was watching. In late 1981, at a pre-Christmas party in Manhattan, she met Henry Kravis. He was 37, 5'7", compact, with the tightly controlled energy of a man who had converted every competitive impulse into profit since the age of 25. He was co-founder of Kohlberg, Kravis Roberts & Co., the private equity firm that had essentially invented the leveraged buyout, a technique in which you acquire a company using that company's own assets as collateral for the debt. To understand what that means in practice, in 1988, KKR executed the acquisition of RJR Nabisco, the tobacco and food giant, for $31.4 billion. At the time, it was the largest corporate transaction in the history of capitalism. It made Kravis globally famous. It was later immortalized in the book and film Barbarians at the Gate. His company was rearranging the American economy. His wife was about to try to rearrange American fashion. She turned him down for 4 years, dated other men openly, refused to rearrange her schedule around his. She had learned from her first marriage to Axel Roehm, a German chemical heir, that a woman who makes herself too available to a billionaire gets classified as an accessory, not a partner. When she finally agreed to marry him in November of 1985, she extracted one condition, non-negotiable, in writing, executed before any wedding took place. Regardless of what happened between them personally, her fashion company would remain under her control. That written agreement was the most prescient thing she ever did. It was also the most completely violated. The wedding took place in the 16-room Park Avenue duplex Kravis had purchased for a reported $5.5 million, 101 guests. Decorated by Robert Denning and Vincent Fourcade, the most sought-after design firm of the era, the living room alone held 9 canvases by Monet, Renoir, and Sargent, Louis XV to Empire period French antiques throughout. A circa 1800 crystal chandelier in the coral damask dining room. GQ magazine ranked the wedding alongside Charles and Diana as one of the 20 great weddings of the century. The set designer for the 1990 film adaptation of The Bonfire of the Vanities used the Kravis apartment as his direct reference point for the home of Sherman McCoy Tom Wolfe's Master of the Universe. That year, immediately after the wedding, Carolyn launched Carolyn Roehm Inc. Kravis held majority interest. Over 6 years, he would invest a reported $20 million. He sat in the front row at her debut show in tears. Her gowns ran from $2,000 to $10,000. Her clients were the women of the Nouvelle Société, the new money class rising through the Reagan years, the wives of leveraged buyout kings and real estate magnates. Donald and Ivana Trump attended her parties. Saul Steinberg, who would later spend $3 million on his own wedding, wore her designs to his events. 4 nights a week, minimum, galas, benefits, the Metropolitan Opera, the New York City Ballet, the New York Public Library. By 1989, Carolyn Roehm Inc. reported retail sales of roughly $20 million. From the outside, a flawless empire. Here is the financial reality that nobody discussed in the front row of those fashion shows. Donna Karan, who was solving the same economics at the exact same time, explained it with precision. Designer lines do not make money. It costs an enormous amount to produce a designer collection. You need some other income to feed that business. She solved it with DKNY, a lower-priced diffusion line that generated the cash flow to subsidize the prestige collection. Karl Lagerfeld built his empire on licensing. Chanel fragrance alone generates over $300 million annually, underwriting every runway show, every couture gown. Carolyn Roehm Inc. had none of this infrastructure. No fragrance, no accessories line, no shoes, no diffusion collection, no licensing revenue of any kind. The fatal error was not bad design. The clothes were genuinely beautiful. The fatal error was structural. High-end haute couture operates on razor-thin margins and requires a mass market or licensing base to absorb losses. Carolyn had neither. Her company was not, in any meaningful financial sense, an independent business. It was a dependent organism, breathing through KKR's oxygen supply. The moment that oxygen stopped flowing, it would stop breathing, and it was about to stop. On August 28th, 1989, Fortune magazine published a cover story coining the phrase "trophy wife" and used Carolyn Roehm as its central example. A woman whose essential function, the article argued, was to certify her husband's status. She read it. She understood exactly why she couldn't prove it wrong. That same year, 1989, Kravis donated $10 million to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. A wing now bears his name above the entrance. The Henry R. Kravis wing. Not hers, not theirs, his. No one said anything directly. But in a world where the placement of a name on a wall carried the weight of any formal declaration, those who understood the architecture of the Nouvelle Société understood precisely what that signaled. The cracks were already there. They were just hidden under $12,000 worth of silk taffeta. 40 people in dark evening wear are seated around the dinner table of designer Mark Hampton, one of the most expensive townhouses on the Upper East Side. Red wine in hand-cut crystal, candlelight, the soft percussion of silver against bone china, an ordinary evening for the city's elite, indistinguishable from the 100 evenings before it. Then someone called Henry Kravis away from the table. He set down his glass, rose quietly, and stepped into the shadow of an adjoining room. The guests continued their conversation. The candles still burned. The wine was still being poured. Then a scream came from somewhere down the hall. Not his voice, hers. A friend of Harrison's was calling from Colorado, his voice broken. "The car crashed. He's hurt pretty badly." Minutes later, the same voice. "He's passed away." Harrison S. Kravis, 19 years old. Just finished his first year at Brown University. He had been driving on a gravel road outside Meeker, Colorado, on a summer evening. Too fast. Lost control on a curve. The car hit a ditch and rolled. He was not wearing a seatbelt. His passenger survived with a broken arm and head injuries. Harrison died of massive trauma inside the vehicle. Henry Kravis flew to Colorado that night. Letters written by both Henry and Harrison's mother were read at the funeral. Those who attended described it as devastating. Kravis would write, decades later, "Without a doubt, the saddest day of my life was the 13th of July, 1991. 2 months later, September 9th, 1991, the news hit 7th Avenue like a seismic event. Carolyn Roehm Inc. was closing. The Wall Street Journal broke it first, noting that the newly appointed company president, Kitty D'Alessio, former head of Chanel, hired just weeks earlier to restructure and save the business, had been seen negotiating a severance package at KKR's offices. With Kravis, not with Carolyn. The implication was unmistakable. The official statement from Carolyn Roehm: she was closing, in the wake of a personal family tragedy that has caused me to reevaluate my plans for the future. De La Renta offered his own version later. I think Henry wanted her to quit so he could have more of her time, but he told me it was her decision. Read that sentence carefully. He thinks Henry wanted her to quit, but Henry told him it was her choice. Those are not the same sentence. One is observation, one is narrative management. And the gap between them is where the real story lives. What we know with certainty: she sacrificed her company to save her marriage. She had insisted on a written agreement protecting the business before she would agree to marry him. She had worked 12-hour days for 6 years, building something that bore her name. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for this career, leaving De La Renta twice for relationships, returning twice when they failed. Walking away from Carolyn Roehm Inc. was not a retreat. It was a wager, the highest stakes wager of her life, that the marriage, freed from competing demands, could survive the grief that was threatening to destroy them both. The wager failed. May 1993, columnists Aileen Mail and Liz Smith broke the news simultaneously in their respective columns. Henry Kravis and Carolyn Roehm were separating. The credit cards, cancelled. The staff, let go. The catalogue business, which had just reported $3 million in sales in its first year, collapsed when Kravis withdrew financial support after the divorce. Of the 7 properties they had owned together, the Park Avenue apartment, Weatherstone in Connecticut, the Southampton house, the Colorado ski lodge, the Dominican Republic retreat, and others, she emerged from the settlement with 1. Weatherstone, balance remaining, 0. The replacement was not younger. She was not more beautiful. Marie-Josée Drouin, born Ottawa, 1949. Economist, policy advisor, former executive director of the Hudson Institute of Canada, member of the board of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, A.I. Future president of the board of the Museum of Modern Art. Kravis married her in 1994. They remain together today. This is the part the tabloids never fully understood. It was not an act of passion. It was a strategic upgrade. In 1985, Kravis needed a socially magnetic, aesthetically brilliant partner to establish himself at the summit of New York's cultural hierarchy, to put his name beside Renoir, beside the Metropolitan Opera, beside the great hostesses of the Gilded Age. By 1993, he had already conquered that world. He no longer needed a queen of society. He needed an intellectual peer, someone whose credentials were policy, economics, and institutional governance. Marie-Josée Drouin was not a betrayal. She was the next phase of a very deliberate plan. The flowers, the gowns, the 6,000 European stems for a single dinner party, they had served their purpose. The purpose was complete. She gave up the one thing she had spent her life building in order to save the one thing she valued more, and the thing she valued more was taken from her anyway. What Carolyn Roehm did after the divorce is the part of this story that almost nobody tells, because it does not fit the narrative of the discarded wife. And because the woman who emerged from the wreckage turned out to be considerably more interesting than the woman who built it, she went to Paris, and she took a job in a flower shop. Not any flower shop, Moulay Savart, on the Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré, one of the most celebrated floral ateliers in Europe. She worked as an apprentice, quietly, under someone else's authority, learning from the founder how to think about flowers not as decoration, but as design, the same language of color, texture, line, and proportion she had spent 20 years applying to clothing. She was 42 years old, divorced, financially diminished, socially erased. There is a lesson here that applies far beyond fashion or New York society. When you build a business, a career, or a life using someone else's capital, you do not own it, you occupy it. And the moment the capital is withdrawn for any reason, rational or emotional, a recession or a death, or simply a change of priorities, you do not lose your business, you lose your identity. Because the two had become the same thing, the structural failure of Carolyn Roehm Inc. was not artistic. It was the fundamental error of a founder who confused access to capital with ownership of it. The protection she thought she had, that written prenuptial agreement, proved unenforceable in the way that all agreements between unequal partners eventually prove unenforceable, not through legal violation, but through the slow withdrawal of the conditions that made the agreement meaningful in the first place. In 1999, Weatherstone burned to the ground. An electrical fire destroyed the 234-year-old house completely. Gone, her collection of irreplaceable books, the photographs taken throughout her career. Every original fashion sketch, the fabrics and trimmings accumulated across 2 decades as a designer, the physical evidence of a life. Everything she had kept, gone. The shock was so sad. I thought about leaving it, she said afterward. Then I thought this could be a window to creating something that is truly mine. That sentence is the most important one in this entire story. She rebuilt, on her own terms, a neoclassical stone house on the original 59 acres, no antique inside the walls later than the 19th century. A place designed entirely around her own aesthetic, not the aesthetic that a marriage to a billionaire had required. During the years of reconstruction, she lived in a converted barn on the property and called it, with characteristic precision, Weather Pebble. Over the following 2 decades, she published 13 books on flowers, entertaining, gardening, interior design, gift wrapping, and lifestyle. A body of work that established her as one of America's preeminent authorities on domestic beauty. Her first, A Passion for Flowers, published by HarperCollins in 1997 at $45 a copy, went to its 6th printing by 1999. The readers were not the women who had attended the galas at the Metropolitan Museum. They were women in New Jersey, women in Jasper, Indiana, women in Germany who wrote her letters, saying that on sad days they put on Pavarotti and read her book until the mood lifted. That was the audience she had been building towards since childhood, without knowing it. The audience that money could not have created for her, because money would have kept her in the ballrooms, where the real audience could never reach her. In 2004, she purchased a Sutton Place duplex in Manhattan, 18-foot coffered ceilings, 12-foot casement windows. In 2012, she acquired an 1,824 Greek Revival mansion in Charleston, South Carolina, Corinthian columns modeled after the Karagic monument of Lysicrates in Athens for roughly $3 million. It was listed for sale in 2025 at $12.5 million. The aggregate value of the properties she assembled independently, no KKR capital, no husband's majority interest, no written agreements waiting to be violated through her own earnings from books, lectures and design work, considerable. Oprah Winfrey, who encountered her during this period, said simply, "She is a diva, she is the master, she is my mentor." Manolo Blahnik named his most iconic shoe after her in 1990, the Carolyn Slingback, later made famous by Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. That shoe has outlasted the fashion house, the marriage, the Nouvelle Société, and the entire social world that produced it. It is still sold in new colorways every season. A small, permanent monument to what she actually built. Henry Kravis, now in his 80s, manages his philanthropic and investment activities with Marie-José at his side. KKR manages assets in the trillions. Their Park Avenue triplex is, by all accounts, spectacular. His net worth, roughly $330 million when he was married to Carolyn, had grown to approximately $8.4 billion by the 2020s. The Park Avenue apartment they once shared, the one with the Monets and the crystal chandelier and the careful records, ensuring no guest ever received the same menu twice, that is now someone else's life. And the woman who designed that life, who arranged those flowers and set that table and built that world, rebuilt something quieter, smaller, and entirely her own. She once wrote, The flowers are impermanent, and so is the frost on the window pane and the silk taffeta gown. What lasts is the attention you brought to each of them while they were yours. There is a final question this story leaves unanswered. One that no beautiful quote fully resolves. When a woman builds the house, plans the parties, learns the languages, plants the gardens, designs the gowns, does all of it, and then loses all of it, and then rebuilds again, alone, in silence, in a garden beside a house that burned to the ground. Do you call that resilience? Or do you call it evidence that some women must lose everything before the world permits them to own anything that is truly theirs? If this story landed with you, leave a comment. Tell me which moment stopped you. And if you want more stories about wealth, power, and the private tragedies behind the public facade, subscribe. I'll see you next week.